super excited that you could join us on this fabulous Monday. I had just texted Marianne and said, what did I tell her? I said Mondays are very stressful. I feel like even though I'm like working from home and things should be easy, they're not always easy. So we have people filtering in. It looks really great. We're at 3:02, so I want to start on time, Keith, so that we stay on time.
Sounds like a plan.
As people,
I don't want to run over.
Sure. As people are filtering in, just some housekeeping tips. If you don't know me, first of all, I'm Julie Pankey. Welcome. And we're excited to bring the SpaHive webinar series to you again this week with this amazing content expert. A little bit about housekeeping as we get started. We're in webinar function, so this webinar will be recorded. You will receive an email with the recording so that you don't have to worry about taking ferocious notes. You will be able to have it to refer back to it. If you have any questions, there is a chat function below. So you can definitely put your questions in the chat. Marianne, our support person, is monitoring the chat, and I'll be monitoring it as well as Keith is going through his presentation. Don't need to hold questions to the end. As he's going, if you have any questions, definitely put them in the chat, and we will make sure that we get your questions answered from Keith. So I think that is sort of all of our housekeeping. Everyone is off video because it is a webinar format, so we will be seeing Keith and his screen. Keith, we're so excited to welcome you here into the SpaHive. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're going to be sharing with the community today.
Sure thing. Super excited to be here. This is going to be a lot of fun. I teach as part of what I do. I teach monthly mastermind groups and clients all the time for work. So this is right in my wheelhouse. I love doing webinars. I've done some teaching training in-house as well as to clients and communities. So this is cool. And I'm really excited to talk about content marketing. If you've ever done a seminar, a webinar, any kind of thing about social media, I promise you this is going to be different than anyone you've ever seen because I go out of my way to be very unique and practical. I love a lot of social media experts. I've had, not to be a name-dropping jerk right out of the gate, but I've had dinner with Gary Vee. I met Amy Porterfield and Mari Smith. And as much as I love their work, I don't do platitudes and feel-good stuff. I'm all about the work. I have a very disparate background that I'll get into in the slides, which is awesome, because I love to make some of the slides about me. And, I like to give things that are actionable and like attainable for every audience, whether it's a CEO or right down to the individual. It's really important to me that everybody come away from this today with things they can put into play today, not someday. So that's kind of my personal coaching and teaching style, and I hope everybody vibes with it. And I'll talk a little bit about myself because it is one of my favorite topics, me, but also you don't want to hear about me, you want to hear about this entire topic. And I'm also going to say content marketing overlaps so much of digital marketing, social media, and all the little arms. So there's a little bit of sort of high-level strategy of a few different types of marketing that overlap into content marketing. So I hope that's helpful and not more confusing. I definitely spent a lot of time on this to try to make it as easy as possible without convoluting it. So that being said, I will switch to the share screen. and kick off my deck.
Thank you.
Where are you? Oh, that would help if I do that. And that. Nope. Sneak preview. All right. Can you guys see me okay here?
I see you.
Okay. Let's find out. Still me. Share screen. Here we go. Boom. And this guy. One more second. Thank you. Here we go. Hey. Can you see that now?
Can see it. Awesome.
Cool, cool. And here's the presenter view. Oh, I don't like this application. Oh, Zoom. Why are you so weird? So, content marketing demystified. This is what I do. I want to make it, as I said, as attainable as possible for you. Anybody that's a double screen person and you want to tweet about this or throw up a concept or some cool feedback or a key takeaway, hashtag SpaHive, of course, hashtag my company, BW Media, also sometimes seen as marketing in some of my socials. So again, this is my deck, and I'm also a big fan of jumping in and stop me and ask questions. I love that personally. So feel free. Quick outline of what we're going to be covering today, just because I feel like that's helpful to everybody. Who am I? You'll get some background on that. Why content marketing? Some top-level strategy about content marketing. We're going to discuss developing your own brand voice, keys to building your audience and understanding your audience, how to be data-driven or data-driven if you are one of those people. Brand storytelling, which I'm a big fan of. Some top-level tactics, so we're going to take that strategy and then turn it into actionable things. Creative firepower, which is a little bit of my creative work that I will tie into some of the lessons taught in this presentation, and some best practices of how to plan your content and how to schedule out your posts with a little time for Q&A. Should work out pretty cool. It's about 23 slides. And some of them I'm going to whiz right through because they're not that cool or interesting. They're solid. I'll give myself a B+ on this one. We'll find out later how we did. So first up, we're going to talk a little bit about me and my background. Thank you for asking. Who is Keely? Keely is my childhood nickname. I'm at Keely on Twitter. My friends all call me Keely. It's interchangeable. I'm from the Bronx, New York. There's the Bronx Zoo. And sometimes I'm serious and sometimes I'm fun and I'm rock and roll. That would be a really high level 10-second biography about me. But obviously I'm more than just those things. I grew up in New York City. I have an arts background. I have a journalism background, and I was a professional writer for a long time before I discovered marketing, sort of as a second career. And I had a whole background in music and the arts, as I said, and that's where I really first stoked those flames of my love of marketing. I did a lot of guerrilla marketing for myself as an artist, and that kind of formed the foundation of where I was going to wind up in digital marketing. So enough of this fun gif of me and a drawn-on guitar. Some more about me. Grew up in New York City, lived here most of the first part of my life. Moved to Boston for 11 years, lived in the Boston and New England area. Went to Boston University. I have 2 degrees from BU. One is in business management with a concentration on marketing, and an advertising and digital marketing master's degree. That's me with the Hootsuite mascot Owlie. I cut my teeth in professional social media while living in Boston, working in Boston. And I really formed my values about marketing. And as I said, because Boston is such a tech-heavy city and there's a lot of tech conferences and marketing conferences, Twitter had its first real professional conferences there. Inbound is there from HubSpot. And you would rub elbows with super famous social media experts and really get to know them and get to see how they operate. And I would take those lessons and sort of bring them back to the clients, bring them back to the brand side. Last slide kind of about me is the marketer. Again, 15 years, a combination of time being a consultant, time spent working in luxury travel, consumer brands like pet foods, biotech. I helped do the Funko IPO 2 years ago, Funko Pops, so Baby Yoda for Funko. And I've done a lot of work in the high-tech space, companies like Samsung/Harman and Mobileye and things like that, driverless cars, and things, all sorts of stuff. Sort of running the gamut either as the brand manager, social media community manager, digital media marketing strategist, or just plain old working in the agency world where we led a lot of really great work. And you'll see some examples of my work later that I'll use to sort of explain some of the concepts that we're going to go over here. Enough about me. Break the wheel. This is something I like to do in every presentation about marketing. Anybody that's ever done a marketing presentation ever has seen the wheel, and it's usually like a giant wheel of social media apps or some kind of really weird collection of floaty icons and little branches that discuss all the Hydra-like arms of marketing. And in the spirit of Game of Thrones, which is an illustration from one of the Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire books, I want to break that wheel because I don't do the wheel. The wheel to me looks like a drain to circle down. And what I want to do is make this understandable. And I feel like the wheel concept convolutes everything. So I always have this slide. I like it. I hope you guys like it too. Why content marketing? Why content marketing at all? Really, sales versus marketing is a thing that I feature a lot in my work, whether I'm advising brands, solo entrepreneurs, small businesses, or musical artists. Sales, in the lack of a better parlance, has no chill. It is always focused on closing. It is always on the sales funnel. You hear a lot about marketing and sales funnels and trying to drive people to a decision to buy, which is important. And there's definitely going to be some talk about sales in this deck. But I'm more about marketing. Marketing has finesse, shows up your personal style and panache as a marketer, as a person that's offering not just my service I want to sell you, but really offering the ethos of what I have to offer, not just a thing I need you to buy to start a relationship, but a relationship built on trust, a relationship built on transparency, a relationship built on value. And we're going to talk about how to build all those things with content. And finally, consumers are attuned to content like never before because as we move through this social media age, we are just, built and bred on contents being shoved in our faces at all times. You can see who's doing a good job at this. You can see who's doing a bad job at this. And so, as you go, after this presentation, I think one of the things is, in addition to content marketing skills and techniques, I'd like you to think about how you are marketed to as yourself as a person in the world and how your brands treat you, because I think it's important to be aware of this. So, some top-level content strategy. Here's just some bullet points we're going to cover and go over. How to develop your brand voice, really important. We're going to talk about that. How to find your best audience, super crucial to success as a business. How to be data-driven or data-driven. That joke is going to come back again, I promise. It'll land sooner or later. And how to solve for customer pain, which is crucial to any business, especially your marketing. So developing your brand voice. And this is a very basic business stuff, business 101. Some of this may be familiar to you already, and if it's not, that's fine. Your mission statement and your core values, it should be the launching pad for your brand voice. These things should echo how you operate, what your business is all about. Your elevator pitch can also be, substituted for your mission statement. And your core values, just kind of what your business is about. USP is a funny advertising lingo or acronym for unique sales proposition. This is what is the thing that separates you from all your competitors or anybody else doing what you do. it's very easy to say, well, I'm the best or I know the most, but that doesn't really work in advertising and it doesn't work on audiences. You have to have something else, and we're going to help you get that something else today. Reputation is everything. It goes without saying. You want to always behave accordingly, not get into fights on social media or in the course of your marketing. If you have a customer that's having some grief or problems, you want to address them as best you can and minimize any damage. I have a sort of an additional background in crisis PR, and I've seen some horror stories. You want to always be on brand, and we'll talk about how to achieve that without sounding like a jerk. And your fans help you drive the narrative of your brand voice, and we're going to talk about that as well. Moving right along, I wanted to throw this slide in today. First of all, anybody listening, I sincerely hope that no one has been sick, and I hope that all your families are well and everybody's cool, because this has certainly been a really stressful and weird time in the world that we're all going through together. So I thought I would throw in a slide about this to be particularly sensitive at this time in the world. Value thoughtfulness over cheap. You see a lot of brands using the pandemic as a gimmick. Not a good idea. Even if it might get you attention now, even if it might get you some sales now, I don't think it's wise. Be sensitive to your audience. Just goes without saying. People have lost loved ones. People are suffering. People have been ill. People have lost their livelihoods and their incomes. Think about how you speak to them with your ads and your posts. Be evergreen instead of chasing fads. This is just good advice in general. Evergreen is content you can use all the time. It's not dependent on this time in the world. You want kind of a blend of timeliness, current feeling and current moments, but also you want to not be tied to a specific time in the world. If you sew up a lot of your marketing right now in advertising around the virus and the pandemic, it's going to stay with people later. And again, fans have long memories. When you mess up, they never forget. And it takes a long time to get that goodwill back, as I have seen on the PR and social marketing side. And finally, in this time of distress and stress, think about ways to inspire and uplift, especially right now with people.
Keith, I think it's awesome about saying to be evergreen. I think that's really cool because I love that statement. And, I believe that. And I think that it's a really cool point here that, during the pandemic specifically, you see a lot of people that are trying to, pull out the stops, right? People are very competitive to try to, get in front of the other, beat everyone to whatever is going to be next. And, I think of, being evergreen is, I don't change depending on the season. My brand message and what I do for my customers and what we do for the community is evergreen, right? And I think that's, a really awesome tip, is that sometimes we feel inferior, and I'll sometimes look online, and I said this to Marianne last week, and I had a few calls, and I said, it's easy to, compare myself and feel that I'm not doing enough. I'm not trying to grow my business enough. I don't seem to be, maybe as relevant sometimes as others, but that I have to take a step back, and remember not to change just because, other people are changing. And change my messaging and go outside of, what I feel is right for my business just because, right?
Right on, and well said. I'll also add, I didn't take the opportunity to mention it earlier when I had the picture of the dogs. You see a lot of people using Tiger King memes and tigers and Tiger King stuff in all their ads on Facebook. And I know the country is like obsessed with Tiger King right now, and I have an awesome Carol Baskin story if there's time for it. I don't know if it will. But I actually was on a conference call with her. Not great, but it's a funny story. But yeah, you see a lot of people going for kind of the cheap thing, tigers, Tiger King's on everybody's mind. I'm not sure it's the best thing to do depending on the kind of brain you have. Anywho, I will move it right along on this. This next topic is, and thank you for that feedback. This next topic is about finding your best audience. I get asked about this on a weekly basis. How do I find who my audience is, and how do I get more people to follow me, and what is the best way to go forward on this? How do I understand my audience? This is the age-old problem of all marketing and advertising. So you want to be channel agnostic. You might have a channel that works for you the best. You might have a social network that you love the most, but you want to approach your marketing in the first place, especially with regard to growing an audience, without thinking about that channel and more about where are people responding to me? Where am I getting any traction? Try them all. I'm a bit, see what works for you, but also take a look at the numbers and find out what is really working for me. Where are people connecting with me? It may not be what you expect. Definitely differentiate your content by individual channels. I know that social media in particular is a huge chore. I get hired to run the social media. I have several corporate clients right now that I'm running social media for, and it's a chore for them if you're not prepared on how to do it, to create and manage socials. So you do want to not step and repeat and cut and paste your same posts everywhere. There's times and channels that that's more appropriate on, and then there's times when you definitely don't want to, and I can talk a little bit about that as well. And of course, find messages that resonate and then double down. This is just good common sense. If you have something that's working, do it more until it doesn't work anymore. Again, some of this may seem like common sense, but oftentimes we find out it's the obvious thing that isn't so obvious to everybody. Again, is it data or is it data? I believe
Keith,
that the
Keith, can I interrupt you?
Sure, go ahead. Come on in.
There's been some feedback that your audio is a little bit hard to hear.
Oh no.
Is there I think is that me? Oh, of course, my Norton is doing an update right now. But I don't know if there's anything you could do about your audio at all.
All right, I will try to. Today's been just a technology fail all the way around.
No, it's good. That's a little bit better.
Yeah, I'll try to. I moved my phone also. So.
Are you using your phone or a microphone?
I'm on a microphone on my phone for the audio because my laptop was not because my iPad would not coordinate.
That's better though. So if you have your microphone, maybe you're just like turning away from it at times as you're getting excited and talking.
Could be. I'm a very excitable person. Give me one second. Let me try.
It sounds good now. So awesome.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for that. Appreciate you. So as I was saying, the next thing you want to be mindful of is to be data driven. And I know that numbers intimidate people. I'm not officially a numbers guy. I'm not the wisest sage numbers cruncher, but what I found is that by applying myself a little bit to what the numbers mean and trying to get out the best of them and analyze them and use them the best, it actually helped my business enormously, whether it's for clients or on the agency side or on the brand side. So again, data or data. I do believe the proper grammar for the plural is data, like data. But anyway, use the right
data too, because my husband's a software architect, and I always call it data, and he's like, no, it's data.
There's a lot of brands that use data, and then a lot of people who say data. So I go with the Star Trek version and say data. I hope that's not offensive to anyone. Anyway, no more data jokes, I promise you after this. Use the right analytics tools, which I'll get into, which ones and how. Measure the crucial baseline KPIs, and we'll discuss them. Pick the low-hanging fruit, which has many meanings, but what I mean with regard to this is, again, I recognize that this stuff can be overwhelming, so I'll show you how to pick the easiest to understand and decipher metrics and utilize them to guide your work. And then finally, not all channel metrics are equal. You hear a lot about likes and follows and reach, but these things on occasion mean different things across different channels, and you just want to be aware of that. They're not always tabulated the same. Twitter is very different than Facebook. Instagram is a little bit different than Facebook and Twitter. LinkedIn is completely its own animal in some cases, although most closely similar to Facebook. Moving right along, solve for customer pain. This is one of my favorites personally. I'm a big believer in building value. I know that's the third bullet point here, but I try to bring value to my audience, whichever audience I'm speaking to, every day, whether it's free information, whether it's a sense of community, whether it's PMA, positive mental attitude. That's what I live for. This is my personal dose. And I just think that's a great way, especially in this social sharing world where there's a lot of meanness and a lot of trolling and a lot of people behind the keyboard warriors. You want to hug people with your messaging, not push them away. But to back up, you definitely want to find out what your ideal customer needs, who you want to sell to, who you want to be in your customer base, and give it to them. I know that sounds very simplistic, but it really is. If you find that you've built up an audience that wants to learn and wants guidance and wants, you know, a top 10 list once a week from you, or they really like your take on things, they're going to share stories with you from your industry, from the spa industry, and they're going to ask your opinion of new techniques. Give it to them. Give them that time. Give them that feedback. Give them that content. That's what they want. You're going to be helping them and make them more aligned to you as time goes on. And then finally, again, you want to inspire your audience to give that same value you bring to them to each other. And I'm currently teaching a mastermind on building a community. I'm teaching a mastermind of small business owners and musical artists, again, in my wheelhouse of rock and roll. And it's really crucial to try to build your own little tribe, whether it's just your own little social network you're posting on or even an actual dedicated community. And I can talk a little bit about that too. Brand storytelling could be its own whole webinar. I teach
Keith,
this actually.
Are you going to go over metrics more a little bit later?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I am. Indeed.
If there's a metrics question, should I hold it till you go over it a little bit more?
Yeah, let's circle back to it. Toward the end of the deck, there's a little section on planning and scheduling, and we can talk about metrics then.
Perfect.
And I'm happy to go channel by channel and even pick them out and help you with them.
Perfect.
But yeah, and metrics could be its own webinar, and brand storytelling could be its own webinar. But brand storytelling is sort of underrated, if you will. I know, again, you don't have to write every Facebook post like your Chaucer, and you don't need to write every tweet like your Maya Angelou, but it's important to choose your words carefully, whether it's a sales message or whether it's just a personal daily affirmation or whether it's just a news post. I'm a big believer in this next point. You want to really think about, I know that social media feels like a megaphone, but really, it's Dixie cups and string like when we were little kids. You want to build those one-to-one relationships. Instead of thinking like you're turning on a fire hose and spraying everybody, you're really reaching each person directly in your own way. And if you get the one-to-one relationships, the one-to-many will always follow. And then again, sometimes less is more. I know I am a chronic oversharer, and a lot of people are, and social media is not good for everybody and not the healthiest place for everybody. And so sometimes, especially when we're talking about your brand voice and your brand storytelling, a little bit less is better than a lot more. Time for some top-level tactics and a thought for the day, which is cats and dogs and baby videos always do really well on social media. So here's some top-level tactical things. So we did the strategy before. Now here's the actual things that you could put into play. Really good imagery can attract people to engage with you. Again, it's not always easy. I did almost every slide photo image in this deck from a website called Pexels, PEXELS.com. It is basically free photography to use all over the web, even in your ads. Obviously certain photos are mine and of me, but for the most part, they're all from Pexels. And it's really a great free way to source at least photo collateral or visual collateral. Video is king. Can't stress this enough in these days. Even if you're not comfortable, I'm not the most comfortable person on video, yet here I am doing a webinar. I have videos all over YouTube. I'm launching a new YouTube channel with my brand new marketing website soon, and I'm doing a ton of video content. So it doesn't necessarily have to be YouTube, because that's its whole universe, but Instagram, Facebook Lives. You see a lot of people in this time of the quarantine and the self-isolating. People are really going heavy on this live video stuff. Again, Instagram and YouTube for the win. Can't stress enough how important they're going to be going forward. Pay attention to emerging apps like TikTok. I'm not the hugest fan of TikTok, but I think it's interesting from a brand awareness point of view, and I think especially for this field and this audience we're speaking to, there's a lot of cool things you can show in a quick little video. You don't have to be in front of the camera. You can just show a glimpse of your work or your daily life. And there's all kinds of awesome things you can do with TikTok. And of course, don't ignore Facebook. I know a lot of people are going away from Facebook. Personally, I don't Facebook a lot comparatively to how much I use it for business, but I still think it's a valuable network. No matter what they have done to kind of sully it a little bit, it's still the largest social network by 5 or 6 times over the next nearest one. So you can't really ignore it. And then email marketing, which is kind of not really talked about, is a wonderful avenue for content marketing. Your email list, I'm a huge believer in working your email list weekly, if not at least a few times a month, and you can work all kinds of different and cool content into a neat email message. So here's an interesting section here I call Creative Firepower. This is where I'm going to tie back some of the things we talked about earlier with some of my own work. It's not all mine by myself, and I'll point that out, but some of this stuff is mine for my career. And not only were they easy to create, in most cases, they were inexpensive as well. So not costly, not time intensive, things you can all learn to do. JMPankey is a revolutionary biotech company out of Austin, Texas that is trying to cure late-stage lung cancer. Lung cancer is the biggest cancer killer, I believe. And this was one of my star clients in the agency world. I took them from 67 complete social media followers to 50,000, and I led them through their private IPO, which they did, and now they're publicly traded. And they're trying to cure cancer. And they were hesitant to buy in on content. This may sound familiar to you, at the higher level for the organization. It's hard to get people to buy in sometimes. So we made this ad literally for $25, and I'll play it now. A $25 video ad that we embedded on their website, uploaded to Facebook, did like $1 million ad campaign around eventually. We convinced them to spend more money, create more ads. We shot a commercial for them when they went to trial at the FDA. So really inexpensive. That little exploding cancer cell is bought with like stock footage from Adobe for $25. And I think we got an audio of the keyboard strokes. Super easy. I got to work on this campaign for Planet Fitness. This is amazing. I wrote some of the copy for this. This is the Dad Bod Challenge, the Dad Bod calendar and the Dad Bod campaign of 2 years ago. They followed it up with the Mom Bod of 2019 and 2020. And this is where we talk about being data-driven. Planet Fitness gave us access to their years of data that showed, in the case of Planet Fitness's thing is kind of the every person gym, no judgments, the no judgment zone, and not muscle heads and giant lifters, but every mom and dad, everybody. So they were like, what do we do with this data? And we came up with this idea, our creative team came up with this idea about the dad bod and the dad bod calendar. And so we created like the dad bod Olympics. So we made 12 months of Olympic games that a dad with a dad bod could do, the ripcord, starting up the mower, and the lawn bag toss, and the kids at the airport luggage, like you see in the Facebook post. That's a post that I wrote and created. So it was a really fun thing. It was a tremendous PR tie-in because they were really our PR client, and they gave us this project. We were really not their agency of record for advertising, but they gave us this project because our PR was already embedded, and we took data and we turned it into this calendar, into this social media campaign, into social media posts. This actual centerpiece is not only the calendar cover, but it's also the perfect size for Instagram. And we use that to promote that to their customers as well as press. And they got a lot of press for them too as a result. Here's another thing that I got to work on. I had never worked on a fashion brand before. This is a Connecticut menswear company called Bill's Khakis, and I do believe they have some women's items too. And so Bill's Khakis is a pants company mainly, and it was inspired by Bill, the original owner of the company, who found a really cool pair of Army pants in an Army Navy store. He's like, how come I can't get a pair of pants like this? And so their brand is kind of struggling and stale, and it was, really needed like some oomph. And so we collectively came up with this campaign, which was Bill's The American Original, which I think was already one of their taglines anyway. We went with that real dramatic language and visuals. We actually originally had some stock footage of soldiers, and then we sort of digitally imaged the pants onto them. And that didn't look that great for a wide campaign, so we actually then got them to do a huge photo shoot where we shot modern models in the pants and then digitally imaged them where only the pants were in color in the ads. I wrote these two lines. I agree they're a little guy-centric, but guys were our target audience here. I particularly love the one on the right, why an entire generation of French women wept when your grandfather sailed home. And it really evokes kind of like a real classic 1950s, 1960s feeling. Kind of, when men were men, way before I moved to Brooklyn and grew out this big beard and bought 3 bicycles. And here's a piece of content from my music career. This is really interesting. So this is how you can repurpose a piece of content. Instagram is really cool at letting you do creative things with video, not just Instagram Live or IGTV, which seems to have gotten a second life now that everybody is using it under quarantine. But I found this template online. I'm not an expert at Premiere, which is the video editing software for YouTube videos. I'm not that great at it, but I found this template which cut the videos into small bite-sized bits. The video limit on Instagram for short videos is a minute for the stories as well as the feed. And so this is an interview I did with a tiger and this singer from a rock band, and it may not be showing the correct dimensions until I press play here, but this square that you're going to see fits perfectly into an Instagram. That's us talking about self-care, and you can see kind of the 3-up display with the logo, the middle section of the video, and the top section with photos and maybe their album covers. So just different ways to be creative. This is very not intensive. Once you learn how to do this template and plug in the pieces, like 30 minutes. So I know, again, I always talk about that the chore of content is the problem, but you can definitely overcome that with a little bit of ingenuity. Now we're going to get into the content planning and scheduling, and this is where we're going to stop and talk about metrics in another slide, or at the end of this slide, actually. So content planning, because we're coming to the end here. You want to plan your monthly calendar around events, special occasions, and sales goals. You may have a holiday. You may have a big customer drive, a big, a spa holiday, if you will, something big to plan certain kinds of posts around. You want to figure out what is the hierarchy for the most important types of content for your brand, meaning I need to get a certain amount of posts about this type of product, a certain amount of post about this kind of service, a certain amount of posts on this kind of day, once you understand from your data what should be where. You want to focus on a consistent cadence. I, again, will say for the umpteenth time, the social media problem is the chore of it. So if you plan when you're going to have your posts, you know when you have to create your posts by, and schedule them out accordingly, weekly, monthly, daily. 70-30 is the right brand awareness to sales split. I know that that seems low for sales, but the reality is that if you hammer people all the time, buy my stuff, hire me, people don't respond. So when you build value for them, when you build a community for them, you give them value every day, when you finally ask them to make a purchase, they feel excited to support you as opposed to, oh, another sales message, no good. And then finally, test, measure, and refine. This has to do with your metrics. And I can get granular right here. If you want to ask that question now, I'm happy to answer it, as well as any metrics question.
The question just was, are there specific tools that you like to use, you know, to measure the success of, you know, campaigns, posts, etc. So I think it was, you know, what metric tools do you recommend, and, you know, what KPIs are you looking at? So when we're talking about social media, let's see, yeah. So when we're talking about social media, you know, what are we looking at? What are the tools we're using? Are we using the tools that, you know, you have access to, and Instagram, Facebook, etc.? Are we using other tools, conversion tools?
Absolutely. So all the social networks have some native analytics. Some are better than others, but they're all there. They all take a little bit of learning. There's a learning curve for sure. And that's where I talked about earlier. The low-hanging fruit of your data is to pick the handful of really important metrics. And I'm happy to give recommendations on what those are. And pick the really important few metrics that really matter. You can get very granular and lose yourself down a rabbit hole, but you don't want to. And so Facebook has Facebook Insights for brand pages. Your personal Facebook page is not going to have that many data points because it's your personal page, and they don't think you're measuring. But if you have a brand page, and if you don't, I highly recommend you create a brand page if you don't have one. You don't really want, I understand that a lot of people in your field want to run their business off their personal page, which I appreciate, because you're making personal relationships, which I'm a fan of. But you want to have a brand page also, always. And that's where you want to put the focus of your content marketing. And then Twitter has their own analytics, a slightly different animal. I have a feeling most of you people are not going to be big, huge users of Twitter. A lot of people lurk on Twitter and follow, not as much posting. Instagram has insights. They just moved where it is to further confuse you, but it is there now under the little 3 dashes on the upper right-hand side on mobile. And Instagram is really smart. They only have a handful of metrics, and that's all they throw at you because they recognize, like Facebook, it's too deep, and you can go down a rabbit hole. LinkedIn has some pretty good metrics. And actually, the channel that of the big 4 socials that have really great analytics, it's YouTube. And a lot of people don't know. It's a little deep to cut through, but really, really useful. On the next slide, I'm going to talk about some social media scheduling tools, and they all come with metrics, and they all come with reporting. Reporting is a big thing for me. As a operative to my clients, I give reports monthly and yearly, and it's important to sort of be accountable to yourself and check your own reports. Scheduling, as I mentioned, so you want to use native tools when possible for scheduling. Really, just Facebook and YouTube are the only ones that will let you schedule something in advance. There are free tools like Hootsuite that I'm a big fan of and I use. Buffer, it's pretty solid, and Later, which is a relatively recent app that lets you schedule Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. But Later is really great for Instagram because it will let you create and schedule stories, and no other app will let you do that. And give you a lot of control and flexibility over the type of posts you make. Periodically, you want, go ahead.
Do you believe in using the native tools rather than a scheduler?
A combination of the two. So you want to use the native tools when possible, and it's really only Facebook and YouTube allow you to schedule a post in advance. And also, I should say that actually Instagram now also, you can schedule an Instagram post from Facebook's page manager. They just added this like last month or 6 weeks ago, right before this whole thing hit, where you can now schedule an Instagram post via Facebook, but it may not be natural, you know, like I think a lot of people find it a little awkward to like, you're then going to go, your behavior is to go schedule a post and then go make sure it posted, right? I do like social media management tools like Hootsuite personally and later. I've used them both. I like Hootsuite an awful lot. I've been using it a long time, so I'm very comfortable with it, but also a learning curve, takes some time. But you can schedule literally anything from Hootsuite except a YouTube video, and even then I think they're working on that. And then, as I said, you want to periodically, when you can, post in real time. This is especially valuable for lives, of course, and for Instagram, because it's really a slice of your life. Instagram is really the windows into the soul of your social media self and your brand. And then finally, learn workarounds and hacks. Instagram TV, when you make an Instagram TV post, it actually gives the option to automatically share to your stories and as a post. So you're getting kind of the double content there. And then there's this great little app that I like. As I mentioned before, I don't love repeating your content everywhere, but sometimes it's helpful to do this. This awesome little tool is called If That Then This, IFTT.com. And you can actually, it has all kinds of applications, not just social media, but you can basically tell it, like, every time I make a post to Instagram, send it to my Pinterest board. Every time I make a tweet, let me share, or every time I share an Instagram story, share it as a tweet also. So it's really cool. I highly recommend nosing around with that. It's pretty idiot-proof. It's kind of like the Wikipedia of tools for social media. It's pretty easy. And now I'm down to take some questions. I actually came in right on time as far as I was concerned.
I know. I was afraid to keep asking questions because I didn't want to be far behind.
No, at least I'm very, and I like an interactive experience. I think everybody else does too.
I got nervous because sometimes I find that I like talk too much and ask too many questions during the presentation, and then we run over. So I tried to curb my own enthusiasm.
Well said.
So posting frequency, what do you recommend as sort of a rule of thumb for posting frequency on Facebook versus Instagram versus, you know, Twitter lasts just for a second?
Sure.
You know, what do you recommend?
Here's what I recommend. I think at the bare minimum, and typically this is all dependent on a lot of factors. How many followers do you have? How many people are really engaged with your pages? And as I said, what you really want to do is sample them all, like a little potpourri of everything, and then see look at the numbers and say, oh, I'm seeing a lot of engagement on Instagram. I think I'm going to spend a lot of my time there and just a little bit of time other places. But generally speaking, for any good brand page, I think 2 days a week on Facebook, Monday and Wednesday, Tuesday and Thursday, probably not only 1 day, 2 days at optimal times, and I can share those two in a minute. Facebook, I like 2 days a week minimum. I think Twitter, you can never really tweet too much, but again, it takes some time, and it takes a little bit of savvy and time to learn how to do it. Instagram, I think you can never have too many stories, and especially for this core group here listening today, your Instagram can be so awesome. I'm sure you've seen people in the field who like, how do they do that? Damn, just a kick-ass Instagram. And it takes a little time. It takes a little bit of savvy. There's all kinds of little tools, Boomerang, and other things that work on Instagram. I like to post at least once a day on Instagram, 5 days a week, 7 days a week sometimes. Stories, you really cannot have too many. And if you have a particularly busy day or a really fun, high-intensity business, share that bit of yourself. Share. It's really, like I said, you can't really have too many stories. Post 1 or 2 a day max. LinkedIn is really your business-facing self for your personal, career or your brand, and really just a few times a week. I tend to post once a day, Monday to Friday, but I'm in social media marketing, so there's constant change and, constant news. So I share that stuff, but really like a few times a week max. YouTube, again, YouTube's a chore, so you're creating content for YouTube that usually takes a little longer. I recommend to my brand clients that they post at least once a week, if not twice a week, and then share those YouTube posts on their other socials. So that's the good thing about some social media, although I definitely talk down cross-posting too much. YouTube is a channel, and Instagram to a lesser extent are channels you can get a lot of life out of by sharing them to your other socials.
Do you believe a lot in like repurposing content?
Yes, but you definitely want to be mindful of the channel. So for example, if you have on Instagram, I have noticed that, and this is true of myself, that sometimes you just can't get the handle you want, the name you want on Instagram, and your name will be different in other places. So you definitely don't want to have like a misplaced @ sign on Facebook that's not tagging anything. Because it's happened. It's happened to me, and it's not fun. At the same time, you can't account for everything, and sometimes you just don't have the opportunity to get the name you want. So I do like cross-posting. Where I like to cross-post is, ironically, Facebook and LinkedIn. I feel they're very similar experiences. They both get a lot of search hashtags. I didn't really talk about hashtags, but hashtags are a lot of fun. Good to use if there are some major hashtags. I saw you tag the post tagging me about this webinar, and I saw your awesome use of hashtags. So congrats, you're a pro, and I
Thank
like
you.
it. And you're welcome. And I'm a big fan of those. But also, so Facebook and LinkedIn, I like to cross post, and then the same thing. Twitter has its own kind of hierarchy of handles, has its own treatment of keywords and it's kind of keyword driven as opposed to sort of content driven. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but Twitter's algorithm works on keywords. So they've kind of lessened how hashtags kind of funny. They originated in Twitter, and then Twitter decided, oh, these aren't that much fun for everybody. So we're gonna lessen them a little bit. But I still like hashtags on Twitter also. But handles are completely different on Twitter. They're all different animals. So you wouldn't want to have the same post across everything. And then Instagram has its own slightly different, even though it's the same algorithm as Facebook, because Facebook owns Instagram, it's a slightly different experience. And hashtags are really your friend like no place else on Instagram.
Right. And I know we try not to share the exact same content on all platforms. We might repurpose it, but we share it in a different way. It's not just here's a post and then share it across all the platforms.
Right. I will also add in that, yes, photos is the place where you can definitely make a difference and have that as your differentiator across your different posts. So if you want to if you have like text that you really like, you work hard, you have a general sales text that you're very comfortable with using, then keep that and change the image. And of course, you want to have the correct size and shape image for each network as well. I'm going to recommend, I should have put it in the notes, but I'm going to recommend an awesome website called Kissmetrics. Kissmetrics is an advertising firm. I think they're out of Florida. And basically, they're one of the companies that every year they update the social media networks. Every time they make a change on what the best practices is for the dimensions of a photo, if you happen to be a graphics-orientated person and you have a little skill with Photoshop or Illustrator or something, or just Paint or one of the many phone apps that let you design your images to the perfect square for Instagram or the perfect rectangle bay window style for Facebook or LinkedIn. Kissmetrics is the site to go to for the up-to-the-moment perfect dimensions of every social network. I didn't really talk about Pinterest. Pinterest is a lot of fun. I like Pinterest still. I still think it's kind of underrated. I keep hoping that Google will buy Pinterest. It just seems like a perfect match, but Google doesn't ever seem to get social media right. And they're very content to just do search marketing. And
was that KISS metrics, like
KISS
KISS?
metrics, KISS. Keep it
Okay.
simple, stupid. Metrics, KISS.
Yeah,
And
we'll put the link in the chat, everybody,
yeah,
too.
definitely.
So
They're great. There's a couple of others that do it. Mashable usually does it once a year. Mashable's a big tech company. But KISS metrics I can always count on. They always do a great job. And again, in terms of, you want to make sure your dimensions are correct for your social networks, so they're all slightly a little different. You can kind of get away with repeating the same sizes for LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Twitter's a little smaller. Twitter just added the functionality where you can edit an image, which is really amazing. They really never had it before. So that's really cool. And I don't know why the other networks don't allow you to do this, but Twitter was first, so I applaud them. Here's a pro tip for everybody. If you ever have a really cool photo that somebody took for you, if you took for someone else, don't send it over Facebook. Don't send it over Facebook Messenger. And if you're going to put it in a post or on your website or anywhere, like a profile picture, don't text it. Email it to somebody, because texting and Facebook, so like social media networks, like social media channels like Facebook, degrade the photos as you transport them across. And so what you get back is not the same quality as the photo taken. So I always tell people who take photos of me at places, please email me that photo. Just a little pro tip.
I mean, we text them all the time. I didn't know that the quality, gets bad over.
It degrades them unless you have an iPhone, and even then, iPhone is really not as. iPhone and Apple products used to be so far ahead of Android, and now they're not. So I'm just always, to be safe, if you want a high quality image that was shot of you with a cell phone, have it emailed to you.
Okay. Let me try to squeeze in a few more questions. It's almost 4 o'clock. And I know that you could talk about this all day. We love to chat with you. Let's see. Let me go back. Okay. So someone asked, so I know, for example, my Instagram does really well because I'm a dog person. So the dog photos, whether they're stock photos or people love to see my dog Bronx, always do really well. And then anything that is of myself, so real experiences, showing me somewhere, those always do really well. Like, we know the metrics of what images do really well. And so for me, dogs are part of my brand. Lisa asks us, she, like, posting about animals is not on brand for her. So what do you suggest for mixing in pictures that draw an audience while staying on brand? So she's not a spa brand, she's a product brand. And so I love, Lisa, when you post pictures of yourself and you making products and outsourcing products, like back when you did the cranberry bog photo, because I can really feel you and feel your brand. So I get, you're not going to post dog photos. Keith, any tips?
Yeah,
people
absolutely.
Love dogs and babies, but if that's not on brand, what else?
Well, I think
we post.
Yeah, I think in a way, especially when you run your own business, you are your brand, and your personal life, as an entrepreneur, solo entrepreneur, intertwines with your brand. And I think about my mentor. My mentor is awesome, and she posts dog pictures all the time. She has a house in Ogunquit, Maine, and she runs on the beach with her dog. So once a week, there's a lot of dog photos and dog stories. And the rest of the week, she's buttoned up, social media superstar, teaching at Harvard, all that jazz. So I'm a big believer that you can find a way to put yourself in, put a little bit of your personal life into your posts. Of course, not too far flung. So for me personally, I'm a big geek and a nerd. So if I also tweet from my account about social media and Star Wars, people who know me know to expect that from me. Obviously, that's not going to work for everybody else for spa things. But I think done with care and, with a sort of, this is our Friday dog post, have a great weekend, or, you know, on vacation with the pups. I think that's perfectly fine. Or here I am in the lab working on products. I think that's great. So I think that is on brand, actually.
Bringing in some personal.
Yeah, of course, you want to make it a little more personal. I'm notorious for this, probably to a fault in my own self. As you see, I made some of this presentation a little background about me, because that's what I do. That's me, on brand for me. So I think it's good. Go for it.
And how about, what's your thought on best days and times to send out a newsletter?
Oh, good one. Again, I love email. So email marketing is the secret weapon, as I said.
Yeah, we didn't talk a lot about old school email, and, you know, we love it too. So what's kind of, do you have any hard and fast rules?
I do. I like, so I always think about this, especially if you're just reaching your industry audience, right? Your network for the agency, for the org. I think definitely first thing in the morning, Monday or Tuesday, not too late in the day. Late in the week, I like a Thursday in the afternoon, 2, 3 o'clock, when people are after lunch and they don't want to look at their work and they're browsing their phone for emails. I see a lot of high open rates mid-morning. So 10 a.m., 9:45, 10 a.m., 10:30, 11. I see a lot of high open rates. I see a lot of click-throughs. I don't see a lot of bounces and a lot of, people not opening. And then I'm a big fan. I didn't really talk about this here because it wasn't super applicable specifically to this, but I'm a big fan for email marketing of segmenting different types of audiences. So if you have a certain audience for some kinds of messaging, but not all of them, A/B test. Send some people the regular letter. Send some people an update that's not, maybe, might be a little different for them. Test and measure and see what works. And then even sometimes blend the two, experiment. I think that's the beauty of email marketing, is you really have an opportunity, especially with some of these sophisticated email tools. You can really get granular, my favorite word, and really shake things up and get people motivated to open those emails.
Perfect. I'm just answering one of the questions in the chat. And I think we're close to the end. I don't want to keep people. I think we've lost a few people. It's 4:04, but we're trying to stay super mindful of your time. So if you want to stay on a few more minutes, I'll ask Keith more questions. If
I'll stay on.
I wanted to thank you so much for joining us and listening to what Keith had to say. And hopefully we've given you some really good tricks and tips. And we'll look forward to seeing you possibly Thursday in the coffee chat, or next Monday at 3 o'clock. We're going to continue our webinars every week here in the SpaHive. So if you want to stay on, I'll get through everybody else's questions. And then everyone else, thank you so much for joining us. Let's see.
I'm game to stay, and also anybody that has any further questions, the last slide is all my contact info. If anybody wants to DM me on LinkedIn or connect with me there, or follow me on Twitter and ask me a question, feel free to holler at me. I love to teach and help and share as much as I possibly can.
Thank you, Keith. And we'll send an email follow-up with a recording, and also with your contact details.
Cool.
So there was a question. Okay, here's a good one. So what if you post and you put all this work into it, and it's really great content. People, your clients, always like it, but they never engage in it. They don't comment, they don't share. Are there any tricks to get people to actually engage, not just look at it, I guess, as you were saying before, kind of lurk and watch, but really engage them?
Sure. I hear this all the time. Facebook is becoming difficult because, you know, it used to be just a quick little bit of history. Facebook used to be, sort of you know, a Wild West where every time you posted, every single person you were connected to saw your post. There wasn't that much noise. There weren't any games. There wasn't news. There was a lot less traffic, and people really seemed more connected. And now it went from 100% of your followers saw your post to 50% to 20% to 10% to 1% to half a percent. So very few people really see you unless they're really engaged with you. You have to click that see first notification. I try to remind people of that for my brand page, to click that see first. And so what I try to do is get conversational. So as much as you want to, again, megaphone people, buy my thing, check out my thing, support my thing, you really want to engage people in a conversation. Hey, what do you think about this new treatment? What do you think about this place? What do you think about that? Poll people, especially awesome on Twitter, but it also works on Instagram in the stories, and it also works on Facebook. You can do polls on Facebook. You can ask people their opinion. You can have a poll once a week to get people talking. Even if it's not necessarily, even if it's kind of a sub-brand or less important in that hierarchy I talked about earlier in the deck, have that hierarchy of what are the most important types of messaging. You pick one of the lower rungs and focus on getting a conversation started around that. You'd be surprised sometimes people will then engage, answer. Oh, here's an important thing that I probably, again, sort of the two-way street of this that we talked about. You definitely want to answer every comment. I know you can't always do it in real time because we're working, and our job is not social media. Our job is our career, and our job is our work. But go back in, like every person that comments, respond to those comments, thank people for thoughtful comments, try to ignore and hide trolls and haters, and just try to generally be present in the stream of the social commentary, if there is any. I think Facebook's really tough these days. It's really hard to build a groundswell, but keep trying. Don't give up.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. How do you feel about trying to engage people through Instagram or Facebook contests? I mean, is that still a thing, or is that again?
I've run quite a bunch of contests. One of my first jobs in social media was at that luxury travel company, a terrible company, but great people at the company, but a really tough place to work. But I ran a lot of contests. We used to give trips to Europe away. So you know that when you have a contest, a lot of people engage because they want to win something. Then the question is, do they stay engaged after they don't win? So I like contests on occasion. I do them, semi-routinely, and but I wouldn't count on them for longevity. You want to really build fans along kind of a knowledge base, and contests are cool, but they don't breed long-term diehard fans. You might keep a few, but I don't ever count on them because people usually sign up and then unfollow later.
Yeah. Okay.
And the dog agrees.
And I'm grown.
You're grown. My granddaughter just came in. Sorry. Do you want to sit on my lap while I finish?
Oh, I'm grown.
Oh, you're grown. Okay, she's grown up now, just in the last hour. So the one last question I saw on here. Okay, this question is, how long does a post stay relevant? So you post on, we know on Twitter it is relevant in a blink of an eye, right? But in the other platforms, let's say specifically Instagram and Facebook. So that question, how long is it relevant before it moves down the feed and people, can't ever see it again? That's question number one. And question number two is, why is YouTube so important? Like what does it do for a regular business? So those two, and then we'll end it with that.
Sure thing. For the Facebook question, I would say Facebook posts a day or two, depending on how, everybody has something like the average Facebook user in 2019 had 400 to 1,000 friends, just you and me, everybody, depending on your age. And we followed about 500 companies, which means we're getting barraged with other people's content and our own. And so for Facebook, I think a day or two is probably what's relevant. What I like to do, here's another cool pro tip. If I have a piece of content to post on Facebook that really works, I will share it again over the weekend. Even though less people are on Facebook on the weekend, the people who are on engage a little more. So it's an opportunity, kind of a second chance, if you will, to get people to see something I liked, or a piece of content that was important to me, a sales post in an important, week in the month. I might share that a few times in the same week, not too much. So yeah, I think for Facebook, it's basically a day or two. Twitter, it's like 4 to 8 hours, sometimes less, because the speed of Twitter is so fast. Instagram, I feel like, has a different life cycle because, first of all, there's 2 or 3 different experiences with Instagram. There's stories that disappear after 24 hours unless you highlight them, then they stay around. People who are making really great use of highlights is another cool thing. But your feed, people do actually, unlike Facebook, where people don't really go to your Facebook page as much. They just see your posts in their feed. In Instagram, people actually go and interact with profiles a lot more. So I think Instagram is a place where even if you have a post that's really old, I still see people liking and interacting and commenting on posts I made a year ago. And not even very nondescript posts, just kind of a thing that was relevant to them, hashtag for that, tag the artist they follow or something, and they would return to it. And then as for YouTube, just the prevalence of video, we're moving to this kind of, everything is a streaming service. And YouTube is the third or fourth highest search website by itself. It's owned by Google, so all of it is influenced by Google search. Video is vastly important. YouTube is also a music channel. YouTube is also a television network practically now with original programming and movies to rent. So YouTube has a huge importance in the future. I'm a big fan. As you saw, I was able to embed the YouTube videos right into this presentation, and that's just the private presentation. One of those videos is unlisted, and the other is on the client page. So I think,
like, do your YouTube things help boost your SEO?
They can if they're embedded in your website, yes. Okay. And also you can draw, and here's another fun fact a lot of people don't know. Facebook videos that you embed in your website or blog and YouTube videos that you embed in your website or blog, you still get the credit for them on Facebook and YouTube when people watch them embedded into your site. So a lot of people don't know that. And so I run into this in the PR world where we may share some kind of exclusive premiere or something, and they're like, oh, I shared it to someplace else, like Vimeo, or I shared it somewhere else. I'm like, well, if you had shared the post that I had your video embedded in my site, you will still get the credit on your YouTube account, which is what you want. And I didn't really talk about virality because I feel like there's a lot of, again, I talked about being practical, right? And a lot of social media experts will say, this is how you go viral. There is no real way to go viral. Part of it is luck. Part of it is money, if you have money to boost and advertise things. And some of it is, just right place at the right time, catch the zeitgeist, baby shark. Sometimes things just go viral for no reason. So, no good reason in the case of baby shark, unless you have babies who like baby shark. So,
So I have a question. Okay, this is my own personal question, and then we'll wrap it up. So sorry, guys. We asked a lot of people, but thanks the people that stayed on, I think, are interested in this information. So they probably would be interested in this question as well. But so people use, like, we upload our videos onto YouTube, even if we keep them in a private space, that's not accessible by all. But you mentioned Vimeo. So is it more beneficial to use YouTube than any of these other video hosting sites?
Yes, well, YouTube bought Vimeo, so that's number one. Vimeo is really good for private, sort of putting up a, if you need to have it behind a wall for some kind of legal reason or privacy reason, Vimeo is excellent for that. When I had pharmaceutical clients and pre-IPO clients like Funko had their investor video behind Vimeo, behind a password for their investors. So we advertised to investors to go to that private page, and then they had to get the password from us. But Vimeo is owned by YouTube. I think YouTube is incredible. They really went a long way to upgrade the back end of YouTube for analytics and channel management in a way that helps you eventually. It takes a sort of, YouTube is like, and Twitter are like the, crossing the desert, crossing the Rubicon. It really takes a long time to build a long, strong, high, strong following there. But once you do, it does pay off. So I do think YouTube is still great. It's one of my favorites. It just takes a long time to put together the quality content. I think I'm going to put out an ebook as soon as I launch my site, hoping to have it ready by this week. But I think it's going to be another week till I'm happy with it. But I think I'm going to kick off my new site with an ebook on YouTube, because I ran a YouTube seminar and it went really well. And people still ask me a lot of YouTube questions. I feel like Instagram and YouTube, and this is why TikTok and Snapchat came in so hot, each of them. Snapchat's kind of fading now, but the reason they came in so hot is because people saw an opportunity to provide a different kind of video experience than you were already getting. Facebook videos are really big for advertisers and brands, and Twitter has a lot of video capability now they never had before. So everything is kind of going to video. And so, it's still, TikTok is still quite not there in terms of what can I use it for, except for brand awareness, but it can help your brand awareness. YouTube, you can actually have links. You can direct people to a sales page, to an appointment booking page, to all kinds of things. So I'm a big fan.
This is great. Thanks, Keith. I mean, this was really great content. I'm super grateful that you joined us here in the SpaHive. Grateful for everyone that stayed on 20 minutes longer, but the good thing is this will live in video content library, so people can access it anytime. And I think the best was at the end, because we got some really great tips and we can ask some questions and work through some things that, will help everybody out. So thank you again, Keith, for joining us and giving us your time today. And thank you everyone for joining us. And we'll look forward to seeing you again real soon in the SpaHive.
Definitely. Thanks for having me. It was a real pleasure.